Suella Braverman thinks it's a hate march. That's a good reason for coming and joining it. But yes, the feeling is very peaceful. It's very, very emotional, and there's a lot of people here who, I'm guessing, I'm a white Englishman. In a sense, I'm not as committed as I guess a lot of the people here are, and I can only think how they must be feeling.
I think the only hatred that I saw was on Whitehall, and there was a very small group of counter-demonstrators, all of them waving Union flags. I saw one Israeli flag among them. And honestly, they sounded completely unhinged and deranged. I think that's where the hatred is, really. These people, there may be some people who hate, cold showers. I don't know. But, maybe you'll find them here. But, you have to really look pretty bloody hard, I think. Excuse me, I've been shouting quite a bit. But, yeah, I don't see any evidence of hatred. I only see a desire for a ceasefire now and an end to the occupation. If that's hate, then count me in. I'm a hate monger.
What do you think about Starmer's idea that you can have a break and not a ceasefire?
What? Just a stop for a drink and a bite to eat before you continue to be bombed. The man has no morality. Just not even calling for a ceasefire, because what did he say? Because it would only give Hamas a chance to fire back. Just tells you whose lives he cherishes and whose he doesn't. Because he's happy to kill every Palestinian just in case.
And this idea as well that they say about people here who are supporting Hamas. What's your?
Well, I've never heard any pro-Hamas chants. I haven't heard them.
And what do you think about Keir Starmer? Could you tell me your thoughts on the Labour leader?
Well, I've resigned my membership of the Labour Party on the strength of what he said. He's not calling for a ceasefire.
This week you've resigned?
I've resigned.
Oh, right. So how long were you a member of Labour?
Since I was 18.
Since you were 18?
50 years.
Wow.
But I cannot support a party that thinks it's okay to starve a people out of existence. How can I support that? As a socialist, nobody can support.
So you won't vote for him either?
No.
You won't be in
no,
the
I will not vote for Labour. Unless they change tack, there's no way in hell I am voting Labour ever again.
I think to the people, citizens, we can all see how wrong it is, but we're being ignored by the leaders of, each country. So unfortunately our government are supporting Israel, the US government are supporting Israel, but the people don't actually want that.
Why am I here today? Because I've never saw injustice like this in my 81 years. I've travelled a long way to come here, and I paid a lot of money to be here. And democracy is finished. It's just the same. Tory and Labour, it's the biggest thing for any government for the next election, and they're all ignoring it as if it'll go away. You saw today, little babies that were killed. Every baby is as good as the other. Palestinian children are not being treated the same as my children are, the same as your children are. And I've been brought up in Scotland, and my mother and father told me, everybody, there isn't a bad child born in this world that doesn't deserve bombs landing in its head. It's a nonsense, an absolute nonsense. And there's no politicians, there is nobody, there's no statesman, there's nobody coming forward to stop it.
And they hope that if they ignore us for long enough, that we will just go away, but we will not go away. I will come out in whatever the sun, the shine, the rain, the snow, the thunderstorms, and I will be here to support our brothers and sisters and our children and our parents that are caught up in this conflict.
Thank you. A letter came to my house the other day, and it was addressed to the occupier, so I sent it to Israel. I've worked in the media for nearly 45 years now, and I've never known a time when the narrative has been more biased The Israeli narrative is the one that's accepted. The Palestinians' representatives are greeted with contempt, and the news is more or less 100% lies. And yet, despite that, the British people support Palestine. Imagine how much support we'd have if they actually told the truth. Nevertheless, there have always been attempts to control the story. In 2014, the Israelis killed what we thought was then the unprecedented number of 500 children in Gaza. A lobby group in Israel wanted to broadcast their names on the radio. The Israeli government changed the law so that they couldn't. So a great supporter of ours, Michael Rosen, wrote a poem. And this is the poem. It's called Don't Mention the Children. Don't mention the children. Don't name the dead children. The people must not know the names of the dead children. The names of the children must be hidden. The children must be nameless. The children must leave this world having no names. No one must know the names of the dead children. No one must say the names of the dead children. No one must even think that the children have names. People must understand that it would be dangerous to know the names of the children. The people must be protected from knowing the names of the children. The names of the children could spread like wildfire. The people would not be safe if they knew the names of the children. Don't name the dead children. Don't remember the dead children. Don't think of the dead children. Don't say dead children.
Layan Abed, 9 years old. Elia Muhammad I'lewa, 9 years old. Farah Yasin, 9 years old. Farah Yasin, 9 years old. Al-Bara Yasin, 9 years. Arij Radwan, 9 years. Abdul Karim Radwan, 7 years. Manal I'lewa, 7 years. Al-Muntasir Yasin, 7 years. Uday Abed, 7 years. Muhammad Abu Libda, 7 years. Sama Radwan, 7 years.
ضافر الحلو 6 years old. أنس علاوة 6 years old. لنا رضوان 6 years old. يحيى عبد 5 years old. آدم رضوان 5 years old. أميرة الضير 5 years old. جوان أبو لبدة 5 years old. صالح أبو لبدة 5 years old. فاطمة الكفارنة 5 years old. لجين ياسين 5 years old.
حبيبة أبو عيادة 5 years old. ميرا صيدم 5 years old. رندا شعبان 4 years old. جاد البردويل 4 years old. زين أبو عيادة 4 years old. سدرة الشاعر 4 years old. علين الأبو عيادة 3 years old. حمزة الفصيح 3 years old. شام أبو حمد 3 years old. عمر أبو حمد 3 years old. فادي البردويل 3 years old.
أمير الحلو 5 years old. يحيى العكاد 5 years old. Sally Dher 4 years old. Musk الحلو 4 years old. Juri Yasin 4 years old. Abdul Aziz Al Hilu, 4 years old. Marwan Abu Lebedeh, 4 years old. Noura Radwan, 3 years old. Lara Al Hilu, 3 years old. Hamza Aliwa, 3 years old. Muhammad Mu'taz Abaid Yasin, 3 years old. Amir Dhir, 3 years old.
Karam Eid, 2 years old. Anas Skeik, 1 years old. Salma Muhammad Ali, 1 years old. Jihad Mhaysin, 1 years old. Jamal Eid, 1 years old. Siraj Jawad Ali, 1 years old. Iyad Mhaysin, 1 years old. Ubaida Abu Mailig, 1 years old. Abdul Hamid Ashur, 5 years old. Jamil Abu Hayya, 5 years old.
Can we now have a minute's silence for all the children?
This square commemorates the Battle of Trafalgar, a battle in which just under 5,000 soldiers were killed. So what square shall we build for the people of Gaza? Over 9,000 killed in these few weeks. Nelson, up there, regarded as the greatest hero of British naval history, a military imperial history which is absolutely linked to this moment, a moment that has been accumulating for at least 100 years. Built upon by other moments of mass murder. And during one of these moments of mass murder, in the winter of 2008-9, when the Israeli war against Gaza cost 1,391 Palestinian lives and 14 Israeli lives, a poet, writer and academic from Palestine, Rafif Ziadah, wrote a poem most of us have probably heard by now. 15 years later, and it is devastatingly even more poignant. I'll read it now, and I give thanks to Rafif for her words and heart. We Teach Life by Rafif Ziadah. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits filled with enough statistics to counter measured response. And I perfected my English, and I learned my UN resolutions. But still, he asked me, Miss Ziadah, don't you think that everything would be resolved if you would just stop teaching so much hatred to your children? Pause. I look inside of me for strength to be patient. But patience is not at the tip of my tongue as the bombs drop over Gaza. Patience has just escaped me. Pause. Smile. We teach life, sir. Rafif, remember to smile. Pause. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians teach life after they have occupied the last sky. We teach life after they have built their settlements and apartheid walls. After the last skies, we teach life, sir. But today, my body was a TV'd massacre, made to fit into sound bites and word limits. And just give us a story, a human story. You see, this is not political. We just want to tell people about you and your people. So just give us a human story. Don't mention that word apartheid and occupation. This is not political. You have to help me as a journalist to help you tell your story, which is not a political story. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre. How about you give us a story of a woman in Gaza who needs medication? How about you? Do you have enough bone-broken limbs to cover the sun? Hand me over your dead and give me the list of their names in 1,200 word limits. Today, my body was a TV'd massacre that had to fit into sound bites and word limits and move those that are desensitized to terrorist blood. But they felt sorry. They felt sorry for the cattle over Gaza. So I give them UN resolutions and statistics, and we condemn and we deplore and we reject. And these are not two equal sides, occupier and occupied, and 100 dead, 200 dead, and 1,000 dead. And between that, war crime and massacre, I vent out words and smile, not exotic, not terrorist, and I recount 100 dead, 1,000 dead. Is anyone out there? Will anyone listen? I wish I could wail over their bodies. I wish I could just run barefoot in every refugee camp and hold every child, cover their ears so they wouldn't have to hear the sound of bombing for the rest of their life the way I do. Today, my body was a TV massacre, and let me just tell you, there's nothing about your UN resolutions have ever done about this, and no soundbite I come up with, no matter how good my English gets, no soundbite will bring them back to life. No soundbite will fix this. We teach life, sir. We Palestinians wake up every morning to teach the rest of the world life, sir.
We need no lectures from those politicians who have done nothing about the killing of Palestinians year after year and decade after decade. And we need no lectures from Suella Braverman. Suella Braverman, if you want to see hatred, take a good long look in the mirror. We see you. You are the sort of Tory Home Secretary who would have wounded up the Jewish refugees from Nazi Germany to send them off to Rwanda. And Rishi Sunak, you say, don't defile Armistice Day. Let me put it simply, Rishi. Armistice means ceasefire, you idiot! And the cenotaph is safe in our hands because the cenotaph is a memorial to the dead, and the way to honour the dead is to stop the killing. And brothers and sisters, we are facing a genocide. We can see it on our TV screens, but we don't even need to watch TV. We can hear it from the mouths of Israeli politicians. Netanyahu says, treat the Palestinians like the Amaleks, who are wiped out. The Israeli public diplomacy minister, she said, erase all of Gaza from the face of the earth. The Gazan monsters will fly to try and enter Egypt, or they will die. So, if it looks like a genocide, if it sounds like a genocide, and if those in charge are calling it a genocide, then it is a genocide, and we have to stop it. Now we know that the Netanyahu government is a government of criminals, but there are other criminals, even bigger criminals, and they're much closer to home. They work just down the road in Downing Street, in Washington, without whom the Israelis could not persecute the Palestinian people. And these are the people that have brought us war after war after war. And the martyred dead of Gaza are joining the hundreds of thousands of Iraqis, of Afghans, of Libyans, killed by governments that know only war. Imperialism is our enemy, and imperialism must be defeated, and the politicians who support it must answer for what they have done. And let me say on that point, it's probably never been said before, the Labour Mayor of Burnley spoke for the country when he said Keir Starmer should resign. You have no morality. You have no principles. Let the establishment put him back in the cupboard they found him in. Because we say, in our thousands, in our millions, we are all Palestinians. Now, brothers and sisters, we can't just be Palestinians for a Saturday afternoon. We have to be Palestinians when it comes to the next general election, and no politician who does not support a ceasefire should be getting a single one of our votes. And remember, when it comes to genocide, there is no such thing as a lesser evil. And any politician that comes to you and say, oh, sorry about the genocide, but I will spend a bit more on education or a bit more on the NHS. Remember the children of Gaza who have no education, no health service, because you would not support a ceasefire.
Those responsible must be brought to justice. And yes, friends, that means the Israeli government and their armed forces. But when the International Criminal Court prosecutes those responsible, it must also look at their friends around the world who have supported these crimes and helped make them possible. And for us, friends, this starts here in London. British ministers have provided strong support for Israel's war on Gaza, and they vetoed a ceasefire resolution at the UN Security Council. They should have supported that ceasefire resolution. If they had thousands of those children and women and men in Gaza who now lie dead, they would still be living. But Rishi Sunak, he stood up in Parliament and he defended that collective punishment of Gaza. He supported driving over 1 million people from their homes in Gaza. He must face charges for war crimes. And the ICC prosecutors, when they charge Rishi Sunak, they must also charge our Foreign Secretary, James Cleverly, and they must also charge Grant Shapps, responsible for the Ministry of so-called Defence, which we would call the Ministry of War. They must all face charges for war crimes.
Thank you everyone for being here. Thank you all of you for making that journey. Thank you all of you for being the presence. Thank you all of you for being a voice for peace, a voice for justice, a voice for the people of Palestine. This square is completely full today, and I've been here on many occasions, and this is the fullest that I've ever seen it. Thank you for that. But we are not alone. All over this country there are demonstrations in towns and cities all over with huge crowds. All over the world there are people marching, demanding peace and justice for the Palestinian people. I want to thank all the organisers that put this together here, all the groups, and all those that have supported this demonstration. And thank in particular Jewish Voice for Labour for being here as well, despite the criticisms that they've had, because it is a message of solidarity that we have to give today. Our revulsion is there at killings. Our revulsion is there at the death of any person at the hands of a bomb. And then you look at the millions that has been spent by Israel on the planes, on the bombs, on the munitions. And then you look at the shortage of medicines, food and water, and you think, but for all that money being spent on weapons of destruction all over, we could deal with so many social problems, not just in Palestine, but all over the world. It's a question of recalibrating our thought process. But fundamental to this is, of course, the decision taken by the Israeli government to basically expel the population of Gaza, first from the north, force them south, and then force them out. And I cannot leave behind me the image I saw today on television, others have probably seen it, of somebody weaving through dead bodies on a street, weaving through them, trying to show respect for the dead and get to a place of safety themselves. That is the reality of what is happening in Gaza today. Children dying in their hundreds, people dying in their thousands, buildings being destroyed, the whole life of Gaza being snuffed out, and I fear a population being expelled to form a new Gaza in the Sinai Desert in the future. Well, it's not done in our name, and we will be here as long as it takes to show support for the Palestinian people. We are not going to walk away and forget them. And so when our government shows the inability to even vote for a ceasefire at the UN, when all the political parties that ought to be speaking up for peace, for justice, for human rights, for international law, are silent. Silent to allow the killing to go on. Silent to allow this ghastly war to continue. So we will continue demanding that ceasefire and demanding the saving of life as a result of it. But these things all come from a point in history. They come from the Nakba, they come from the occupation. So spare a thought, if you would, please. Yes, of course, for the people of Gaza, but also for the Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, in Jordan, in Syria, and the Palestinian diaspora all over the world. And of course of the occupation of the West Bank and the settlement policy. I've spoken to many people in Gaza and the West Bank over the last few days. And a few minutes ago I was speaking to Mick Bowman, lovely guy from Newcastle who walked all the way to Palestine as an act of solidarity. And I was just speaking to him on the phone, and I said, he's in the West Bank at the moment, give me a message. And he said this: Palestinian villages are under threat from heavily armed settlers working with the Israeli army. This is ethnic cleansing accelerated since the 7th of October. Israel is using this opportunity to accelerate levels of violence. An entire village had to be evacuated. Then he concluded the message saying, this is a process of organized ethnic cleansing. People here really value the solidarity from you and all people. Samud, meaning steadfastness and strengthening their determination. Samud to all of us, solidarity with the people of Palestine, and demand a ceasefire now to save life. Thank you.
Save the children! Save the children! Save the children! Save them all! 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 Save them all! Save them all! Save them all!